There comes a moment when a man stops asking for peace and starts protecting it.
Because every time you let something slide, you train the world to walk on you.
This is your fault line, and today we draw a new one. Here are 8 behaviors a man of strength, clarity, and code must never tolerate. Not once, not from anyone. The first behavior you should never tolerate is the silent insult. They don't shout. They don't argue. They just smirk when you speak. They say, "Interesting," then change the topic. They don't disagree. They just pretend you were never in the room. You sit there wondering if you're overreacting. But you're not. What you feel is invisibility, and no one deserves to be invisible in their own story. At first, you stay quiet thinking, "I'll prove my value." You speak more. You try harder. You give better ideas, and still they look through you like glass. But here's the Stoic truth. A wise man never begs to be seen. He walks away from tables where his soul is starved. You don't need their approval. You don't owe them your presence. You owe yourself the power to leave where you are not honored. Your silence is not weakness. It's a message. It says, "If you can't hear me when I whisper, you won't deserve me when I roar." The second behavior you must never tolerate is psychological chess. They twist your words until you doubt yourself. They shift blame so smoothly, you start apologizing for their mistakes. They give you just enough praise to keep you close, and just enough silence to keep you anxious. You think it's love. You think it's connection. But it's not. It's control, dressed up as care. And confusion becomes your new comfort. You lie awake, replaying every conversation, trying to decode their silence. But a Stoic doesn't decode games. He sees the board and steps off it. Because this is the truth. If someone always leaves you guessing, it's not your intuition failing. It's them, playing. Clarity is power. And sometimes the clearest thing you'll ever see is who keeps clouding your mind. You don't make a scene. You don't need closure. You just leave. No chaos. No goodbye. Just a quiet exit. And a locked door they'll never reopen. The third behavior you must never tolerate is emotional leeching. Some people don't vent. They drain. You listen for hours, thinking you're helping. But you're not a friend to them. You're a landfill for their unresolved pain. You offer advice. They reject it. You offer support. They demand more. You bring clarity. They recycle the same storm. Not because they want to grow, but because they need to stay broken. And they need you to sit in that darkness with them. You think it's loyalty. You think you're saving them. But you're only drowning beside them. And the Stoic knows you cannot heal someone who worships their own suffering. You don't owe anyone your emotional bandwidth. Not the friend who never takes your advice. Not the family member who always plays victim. Not the partner who confuses chaos with connection. Your peace is sacred. And it is not community property. Walk away without guilt, without explanation. Because your light was never meant to be someone else's power source. The fourth behavior you must never tolerate is integrity theft. When someone lies to you, it does more than twist the truth. It twists you. You feel the lie before you can name it. Your gut whispers, but you silence it. And slowly, you stop trusting yourself. You begin to question your memory. You reread the texts, replay the calls, and still something feels off. But they act like you're the problem. That's not just manipulation. That's corruption of your inner compass. And that damage is quiet, but deep. A man who lies isn't just unworthy of your trust. He's unworthy of your time. Because every conversation with a liar is a crack in the mirror of your self-respect. A Stoic protects his mind like a fortress, and a fortress doesn't need to prove what's true. It just needs to stay sealed against what's false. So remember, you don't confront every lie. You don't beg for honesty. You simply stop giving access. Don't let a liar map the inside of your soul. because once they do, they'll rewrite the war in your name. The fifth behavior you must never tolerate is entitled presence. They don't say thank you. They say, of course. They treat your effort like it's owed, your time like it's disposable, your boundaries like they're in the way. At first you think maybe they just forgot, maybe they're under stress, but over time you realize they don't see you as generous. They see you as convenient. You offer help, and they expect it. You say, not this time, and they get cold. It's not just entitlement, it's erosion of your energy, your values, your dignity. A Stoic gives, but never under pressure. Not to fill someone else's laziness, not to reward disrespect. Because kindness becomes a weapon when it's used to keep you submissive. So here's your clarity. Your heart is a gift, not a service. Your kindness is strength, but only when you know when to sheath it. The sixth behavior you must never tolerate is public loyalty and private shade. They clap when you're near, but shrug when you're gone. They post your wins, but never message you when you lose. They smile to your face, but deep down, they're rooting for the fall. At first, you miss the signs. You call it distance. You call it mood. But what you're really feeling is absence of real loyalty. Disloyalty doesn't always stab you in the back. Sometimes it flickers, it avoids, it hesitates. It disappears when it matters most. You tell them good news, and they change the subject. You speak your dream, and they remind you what might go wrong. That's not friendship. That's quiet sabotage. A Stoic doesn't fight to be supported. He observes. He notes the silence, and then he disappears, fully. No message, no scene, no second chance. Because loyalty isn't loud, but disloyalty is never truly quiet. The seventh behavior you must never tolerate is energy vampires in disguise. They call their chaos just being real. They label your goals as too much. They mock your discipline. They flinch at your ambition, because deep down, your growth threatens their comfort. At first, you try to include them. You downplay your wins. You shrink your dreams to fit their fear. But no matter how small you get, it's never enough. They still feel insecure. They still throw shade, but smile while doing it. They feed off your self-doubt and panic the moment you start believing in yourself. Not because they hate you, but because they hate seeing what they're not willing to become. A Stoic doesn't beg for applause. He just notes who claps and who stays quiet. And then he draws the line. Because anyone who feels smaller when you get stronger was never standing beside you. They were standing in your way. So remember, if they can't clap for you, don't let them stand near the stage. The eighth behavior you must never tolerate is boundary testing. They push an inch, then 2, then 5. And when you finally speak up, they call you dramatic, too sensitive, overreacting. But this isn't miscommunication. This is rehearsal. They're testing how much they can get away with, how much of you they can erase before you notice. At first, it's jokes that sting. Then it's favors that feel more like demands. Then it's choices made for you, without you. And slowly, your no becomes negotiable. A Stoic draws his line in stone, not for control, but for clarity. Because without that line, you don't just lose respect, you lose yourself. So define it, defend it, not with anger, but with presence, with stillness, with a door that doesn't reopen once it's disrespected. A man with no line doesn't just get crossed, he gets erased. But in the end, the standard you set is the life you get.
Every time you excuse it, you train them. Every time you tolerate it, you tell them who you are. So what do you allow? And what ends today? Choose, move, or die.